Give this to the
Rabbi?
sure. Thank you.
If they found eggs somewhere, because the eggs,
That'd be cool. Daniel, could you pass it?
Very well. I'm a tour. The people do the tour. It's fun. They're like a little more standing.
I have a daughter that graduated master's Torah special ed. She worked for Yale, very good money.
My daughter
For her
also.
husband and for children.
Wow. My daughter also, she also went to Torah, undergrad and grad. She started in Brooklyn and she transferred to Torah.
It's a tuna. Give it from David Malka.
Also special ed.
What's his name? David Malka?
Very good.
Where did she work? Yalda? We're in Borough Park?
No.
Yalda is in Borough Park also, I think. What?
She goes to houses, they send her to.
Yeah, but where?
McDonald's.
Good morning, good morning.
Your place, in Borough Park also.
Today, the sheet is sponsored by Ari Waldman and his wife. Covered his father-in-law's Today, they're finishing. What's the name? Tzvi Gedalia Levi. Ben Akiva Meir. Shav Alichtik Gan Eden. Baruch Hashem, he was able to have such a good son-in-law.
Amen.
Baruch Hashem.
You check out.
I have had an even better father-in-law.
Okay, good. Very good. Now we're talking. Okay, so we'll deal with three shilas that that came up recently. One question was the person. Actually, this question came up a few times lately, but someone asked me. This was last week. That he started a job in a firm. He's an architect. So that firm is doing a lot of work with shuls and lahavdil elef avdalos with the churches. So the question is, could he do the architectural work for the churches? Then there was a funny. I was in Houston, and I come inside the shul, and the shliach Rabbi Marinovsky, he gives the Chabad hechsher for the state of Texas, and he shows me he's on this chat, and in Israel, and this person says, my good friend Muhammad would do me a favor. I bought a new becher, and I wanted to bring it to the Temple Mount and put it on the rock in the dome of the rock. Is it kosher? Mishigasas. People ask him, why do you want it? He says, what do you care why I want it? I just want to know if they're allowed to do it or not allowed to do it. And then the other question is the next day I go across the street, there's a shliach there, the Moshe Traxler is a sheikh for many years. He asked me this funny question. He said, a person who went through a little bit of body changes and yeah,
A little bit.
yeah, a lot of it. And yeah, which side of the mechitza should he be placed? And is he allowed to put on film with him?
In between, maybe.
Between
Big problem.
the third place.
Terrible things that go on.
In Israel,
I just asked the question. Someone asked me the question. Okay, let's go to the first question. The Mishnah says in Avodah Zarah, after Zayin Iyar, you're allowed to build together with them, with Gentiles, a thing called bismaz, and beis mechatzos, which is a bathhouse. You came to the place called a kippah, which is a round place, the dome. The dome, where in that place they put the avodas kechavim, the avodah zarah. Also, living as that part, you're not allowed to build. Rashi says, bismaz. What does bismaz mean? Koidim loy, altar. The Ketani bismos shel avodas kechavim mutorim umay bimos bima shel even achas. The word bismos means a bimus. Bimus is a bima, which is what the Goyim called today in the days of Rashi, when they had churches all over, and also today, that there was a place in the Beis Avodah Zarah that was called the altar, and that's the bima. Makrivim zvochim. To have a tashmish, the tashmish lavodas kechavim. Why would it be permissible to build an altar in a church? So he says because that they don't bow to the altar. It's a tashmish, litashmish. There is an avodah zarah, and for the avodah zarah they make a hakrova, and that's on the altar. So that's already 2 times removed. It's called a tashmish, ditashmish, and it's mutter. Tosfos asks an Rashi, "Am I mutter livnes amam?" He doesn't make sense to Tosfos. He says it's a different girsa. It's dismos, not bismos. Rashi says it's bismos, which means an altar. You're allowed to build in a church. You're allowed to build together with them, help them build their altar. So obviously, if according to Rashi, you're allowed to help them build their altar, you're allowed to help them build the entire building, minus maybe the place where they actually placed avodah zarah. But Tosfos disagrees. Tosfos says you're allowed to build with them a bathhouse. Why a banya? It's a big deal. They're building a banya on Coney Island Avenue. On McDonald, I'm sorry, there's a banya on McDonald Avenue. So if they ask you to help build a banya on McDonald Avenue, why would you not be allowed to build a banya? The answer is that they used to build a Beis HaMerchatz with a kippah inside, and inside they made it avodah zarah. But you can imagine that avodah zarah was not, they're standing there in the bathroom and they're doing all their bodily needs. And okay, so it's not like the church. It's a Beis HaMerchatz. So you understand, it's not a Beis Avodah Zarah. So you're allowed to build it, and even in the Beis HaMerchatz, Tosfos says that when it comes to the actual place where they put the Avodah Zarah, that you're not allowed to help them build. So Tosfos is very machmir. Comes down to a girsa if the Mishnah said Boinim Memon Bismos or Boinim Memon Dismos. Bismos means an altar, and Dismos means a bathhouse. Okay, Rambam says also you're not allowed to build this kippah, the place where they put Avetz Kachavim, the dome of where they put Avetz Kachavim. But if a person did help and did build, the money he got is mutter. That's the way that Rambam paskins. He's allowed to use that money. He doesn't have to throw that money into Yam HaMelech. That you could build the building. The Rambam is a little. You can learn Rambam like Rashi, and the Shulchan Aruch seems to learn that the Rambam went like Rashi. That's the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Shulchan Aruch paskins in Yeridei Sim Kuf Mem Gimel Tzibeis. Also, Livnas Imagoy Ma'avet Kechavim Kippah Shemavidim Ba'alilim. You're not allowed to build the dome that is used in order to put the idol there. V'Mavar Rabana. If he built a fila avodah zarah atzma, even the avodah zarah itself, schorei mutter. That's the way that Rama holds that the schor is mutter if he did build. Is allowed to build the taraklin, the building, the courtyard where the dome is placed.
When he can't do it, that means his employee also can't do it? Because he's obviously not going to get the job if he's going to not agree to do the whole thing.
Yeah, so it's a good question if you can have an employee do. In general, there's a question if there's shlichus for a goy. So it's a good question if you could have his workers do it. But the question at hand is not about having his workers do it. Right now, the question is this person that's an architect, he's working himself on it. The question that you're saying about his workers we'll touch in a minute in the next question, actually. Right.
Well, the architect is not actually building it, he's doing the design.
Oh, so you're bringing up a good point. I'll get to that in a minute. It's actually a very good point. The Taz writes on the Shulchan Aruch, Teimal Shulchan Aruch v'Ramah. I'm surprised at the Shulchan Aruch, and I'm surprised at the Ramah, Shalichoshu Lifsek L'Chumra, that they were not careful to paskin to be machmir about this question. How can they not be machmer befrat beisur elul shekam pomim matzino shechmidu b'tvei mishar yisurim? In the Isra Avodah Zarah, we see that the poskim are very, very stringent about this. So how could you say, okay, Rashi Tosis, let's go like Rashi? How could you do that? Haloitira b'soif siman kuf lamates sheichmiru limker lem afile klapi vidyoi, klofim vidyoi, not even to sell them pieces of paper and ink to the church. So kol shekain, so that's v'shor chumras kal v'chomer ben benoy shel kal v'chomer. You see the blood pressure, the Taz is going up over here. He's getting a little upset about this. That the actual church, how could you allow that a Yid should be a shutaf and building the church? And the Gra seems to a little bit agree with this. The Gra writes, he says on the Shulchan Aruch, I'm surprised, the Divrei Rambam ein inyan lazeh. The Rambam never got involved in the machloikis of Rashi and Tosfos, the Amr b'Mishnah, Egia Lekipa. In other words, the Gra is saying that maybe the Rambam was also hold like Tosfos, that we're talking about Amerchat. So that's basically it's a Rashi against Tosfos. The Rashi says that the only thing you're not allowed to build is the actual Avodah Zarah and the dome that holds Avodah Zarah, but you're allowed to build the altar on the building. And Tosfos says Chas v'Shalom, you're not allowed to build. Basically, Rashi holds it's a tashmish, dish tashmish. It's 2 steps removed, and Tosfos says I don't care if it's 10 times removed. You're not allowed to build it. So
This is talking about like a Avodah Zarah. Like, is there a difference if you get a contract to build a mosque?
I'll get to that in a second. Let's first finish about the church. Lamaisa, the Igrish Moshe writes like this. He says. Now, someone just brought up a very good point. He says that, look, when a person is building, he's actually helping to build. When a person is an architect, so true, I mean, they can't build without the design. But Lepoil, for many, many years, until people realize it's worthwhile to build in an organized way, that people would just take cement and rock and brick and wood, they would build. So if you helped to schlep the rocks and mix the cement and put the bricks, that's called Messiah. You're helping to build the house of Avodah Zarah. If you're just taking a piece of paper or a computer and you're showing the workers how they should, that's further removed. So maybe that's a Messiah Shem by Mamash.
The beauty of it is more important than the building of it. By having architecture, they're making it come out so much nicer.
Right, but also what the when it comes to a church, at least it doesn't seem that the Avodah Zarah is the building. They want to serve Avodah Zarah. It's just that if you sit in the middle of the street, it could rain, it could be very hot. So it's just to protect them from the elements.
Next to the building, the more covered to
the more covered. It is, but it's also more covered to the people that are there. It's like a hotel that they like to have a nice accommodation for themselves while they're serving the Avodah Zarah. They want to have comfortable accommodations. Okay. Look, the Reb Moshe at the end says like this. It's definitely that you see that the Taz has a long piece, and he says that it's very mechur. He says that these are his basic guidelines. There's a thing that a lot of times that we make with these things. If there is Ava, there shouldn't be a situation that the Goyim start hating the Jews. So he says like this: if you can wiggle out, definitely. A Jew should try to wiggle out of doing architectural renderings for a Beis Avodah Zarah. 2 things, says Ramosh. You shouldn't lose your job over it. You should not lose your job because the Shulchan Aruch holds that it's mutter. And you could say that the architectural work is a step even more kuladik. Maybe even the Taz would agree. Same thing if it's a project that would be Ava, that you can't wiggle out. So also it should be mutter. But if you could wiggle out of it, and there is no Ava, definitely you should try to wiggle out. Now, the Moshe's Tshuva is talking about a church. So I had someone mentioned before, and there is this question that came up recently. Also, someone that asked me if he could do electrical work for a mosque. The Rambam holds that a mosque is that the Yishmaelim are not oiv de avodah zarah. So if the Yishmaelim are not oiv de avodah zarah, So then it would be permissible to do electrical
But for
work.
us, it is avodah zarah.
If
There's a Chabad
and-
house that davens in the mosque in the Bronx.
Daven in the mosque?
I don't know.
Yeah. It was, many articles about it. I can show it to you next week.
Where is this? Where?
In the Bronx. It was a neighborhood that
Bronx.
once it
Which
used to
one?
be Jewish and then it started getting less and people couldn't afford to pay rent. And the imam remembered when they used to donate coats to them when they first came from West Africa. And he said that they could daven in his mosque. And they've been davening for years.
Black, so they're black Muslims.
And they said that it's not that you could daven, a Jew could daven in the mosque. I mean, not with the minions.
So
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it was written in all the papers.
I don't know.
I didn't have own them.
So
Years ago.
then there's on the other side, there is really places of Avodah Zarah that are like Hindu temples, for example.
They're really
That's
sketches all over the place.
right. That they are more on the side of Avodah Zarah. So anyway, Lamaisa, when it comes to a church, again, that the Moshe says the Shulchan Aruch would say it's mutter, and maybe there's a svara that say the Taz say mutter. Don't lose your job over it, but try not to do it. That's if it's a church. Now he says at the end, if it's a temple, a reformed temple of a conservative shul, a vada, it doesn't have the same din, and it's mutter. Okay,
We're not allowed to daven in there.
they're not allowed to daven in there.
Maybe by the way, just
But you could think
too
that
tight to it.
eventually
I mean,
it'll become a base or something like that.
keep
Because they're gonna lose it. Eventually they're gonna lose everything.
No, they're conservative.
Don't.
It's happening,
No.
by the way.
Oh, wait, by mouth.
Schools that they're Chabad
It's
that have
happening.
a day school.
That the derivation of that name.
They daven to the but they believe Muhammad was the last messenger.
My wife found out very kind. What? They decide.
But in a month.
But you're trying to make the best reform temple and best conservative, because eventually it'll become a Chabad.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
One other one, very
So
tractable.
now about the question.
Tractable.
Tractline.
What is that?
Huh?
What does tractable mean?
A tractline is a building.
Any building?
Yeah.
Talking about architectural plans, but
So
also
the Moroccan
building is the
Marcelo,
same
they
as
turned into a mosque.
architecture, that it's okay.
And we daven.
No, the building would be the Machlokes Shulchan Aruch and the Taz.
Oh, I see.
Rabbi, you can daven in the mosque, right? Not you, a Jew. You can also
Okay, put the question
You
even
can't
more.
daven in a church, but you can daven in a mosque because they believe in monotheism, whatever you call it.
Put it in a different way. in the
Lifnei Iver Leisit Michel is a pasuk in this week's parsha. The question that was asked about his friend Muhammad, so I don't understand. I mean, the people that were answering, there were a few devonim back and forth. We're talking about there's a thing in the in Hilchos Shabbos Samaresh from Gimel that you're not allowed to ask a goy to do on Shabbos any malacha that you're not allowed to do.
Right.
So even though ain't shlichus lanochri, but we say there's a shlichus lanochri lechumra when it comes to Hilchos Shabbos. And there's a discussion if the same thing applies to any other issue. If it's also, for example, if it's also for me to build a church. Am I allowed to send a shliach to go, a goy to build a church? That's a discussion. If I'm allowed to do that or not. But I don't know. But the truth is, in this question, there's another issue that that was overlooked. There's a Rambam says Hachel mekudesh mimenu she'ein aku mutmei meis boy only the nachnasim l'sham. That the goy is not allowed to go in from the point of the chel. Now, if you go today in the Israeli museum, they have a remarkable piece. There is a stone that they recovered a couple of years ago. When you go up to Har HaBayis from Dung Gate, so there is archaeological dig. They have there's a rock that they found, which is now sitting in the Israeli museum, that says that any Gentile that passes beyond this point will be executed.
On the rocket.
Yeah. Past this point, you'll be executed. The time of the Beis Hamikdash. Huh? Yeah, not in Lashon Goyim. Yeah, they should understand the Goyim should Lashon Goyim. Yeah. So the goyim should understand if they're gonna, huh? How?
We were
I
in
don't know.
charge.
They I don't know how.
They stuck by it?
They probably stuck by it.
Was there a
Yeah,
certain part of the temple that they
Yeah.
go to?
because we find it. Yeah, we find.
Was there a certain part of the base of Mikdash they could go to?
Yeah, we'll get talked about this now. So, it seems from this sign that the goyim are allowed to go into the Harabayis, but from the place which is the Chel, which is the sort of the basilica, which is around the base of Mikdash, where they had those big beams, which went all around the base of Mikdash. From that point and onwards, the goy was not allowed to enter. Now, there's a Geschmack sefer, a very lomdish sefer called Mikdash David. He was like a grandson. Rabbi Talansky, you ever learned the Mikdash David? He's the grandson of Rabbi Akiva Eger. It's probably one of the most lomdish svarim and most comprehensive svarim on the sugyas of the Beis Hamikdash. Kochim, avoid the Beis Hamikdash. Very, very lomdish. So he has here in chapter 38, he has a discussion about this. He has a few interesting points he brings up. Number one, he says, I've never found this to be one of the 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach. Where's this? He says, is it a mitzvah on the goy? Is the goy not allowed to enter? Or is it a mitzvah on the Jew? That the Jew has to make sure that you're not allowed to have kol tzaruah v'kol zov, you're not allowed to have any tomei in the base of Mikdash, and since the Chachamim made a din that all the goyim have the din of tomei, so automatically it's not a din on the goy, it's a din. It's a din on the Jew. Maybe he says that's why it's not part of the 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach. That it's a din of us. It's not a din on them. But be it as it may, it's hard to imagine it's not a din on the goyim, especially when it comes to going to the place of the Holy of Holies. You must. Zora Korev, you must. Any foreigner that goes in will be put to death. So it's hard to imagine that it's not really a mitzvah on the goy. And the question that he asked, that it's not one of the 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach, you can always throw it into one of, for example, he's not allowed to be disrespectful to Hashem's name. So you could say that this is a detail, being disrespectful to Hashem's name. Or you could say it's part of dinim. It's not it's not such a big question that it's not, it's not clear. One of the 7 mitzvahs Bnei Noach. It's clear that Rambam says that a goy is not allowed to enter. It's probably not just a din on the Jew, it's a din on the goy. Be it as it may, this week's Pasha, we say Lifnei Iver lo yisik michshol, in front of a blind man, you're not allowed to put a stumbling block, which the Gemara understands that any goy is not allowed to do an Aveda. The Gemara says that if you convince him to do the Aveda, you're over Lifnei Iver lo yisik michshol. So you're not allowed to put a stumbling block for any human being, Jew or Gentile alike. You're not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of a goy. You're not allowed to tell a goy, you're not allowed to go hire a goy to kill someone for you. You're not allowed to do that. Regardless to shlichus l'nocher l'chumra or not, because a goy is not allowed to kill. And if you're gonna pay a goy to kill someone for you, so you are even
Kill Jew or kill goy?
Even
anyway.
to kill a goy. Even to kill a goy, yeah. Because he's not allowed to kill. And now you're convincing him to do an aveda, which is also for him. So you're not allowed to pay the mob to get rid of someone for you. No, there's not allowed to, but unless the guy's high misa, but it's not allowed to. So I think the din is very clear. If we don't know exactly where's the place of the Kodesh HaKadosh, we really don't. But there is possible that the mosque that's built on the Harabayis, called the Mosque of the Dome of the Rock, is in the place of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Maybe yes, maybe no.
Maybe, yeah.
So the bottom line is that it's a suffix, and it's very likely that it's definitely within the place of the Chayil. It's very likely that this is within the place of the Chayil. Again, we don't know. Could be it's outside of the Chayil. For all we know, it's in the picnic area of the Harabayis, and it's mutter for a goy to go there. But it really might be also for the goy. So it's a suffix deiraisa. So you're not allowed to ask a goy. So he bought himself a new fancy becher, He has this mishigas in his head that he wants the Muhammad to put it on the rock, and then he'll feel really good to make kiddush on this bechen. But he's asking Muhammad to do something that Muhammad is not allowed to do. Muhammad is not allowed to go in lifnim and achev, and Kolchkin is not allowed to go into the place of kodesh hakadoshim.
It's a suffix whether Muhammad can't go there.
It's a suffix that I say l'chumra.
But he's going
So I
anyway.
think,
Huh?
So you didn't cause that. He's going anyway.
How do you know he's going anyway?
You know, sticking in if he's going back and forth every day, he has a chazaka that he's going to go back.
so what you say is he's going anyhow,
Yeah,
so
so
he's
you-
not,
Yeah, how do
He
you
stayed
cause
there
that?
next. The din is that if a person becomes tomei, and he stayed in the Beis Hamikdash for 1 extra minute,
Yeah.
he's chayav misa for that extra minute.
so for sure
So
not
for
to
that
put
moment that he's doing
kli
that
that is
action,
done.
it's
Yeah, that extra 1 minute that he's in the mosque.
Problem is to put a Tomedik becher also in that place. You're not allowed to bring things.
You're not allowed to bring things.
I
You're
mean,
not allowed to bring anything into Beis Hamikdash. Not allowed to bring a tuna fish sandwich
It's
into
really
Beis Hamikdash.
different.
You can't stick him in his bag if he's
Huh?
going.
So I
It's
think,
really different.
according to your psak,
Right.
that we have to be
Lately,
we have to be very
last
careful.
week they burnt the Israeli flag in the Harabayis, and it's a shanda. Israel is doing nothing about it. It's nothing to do with Zionism or not Zionism. It's to do with the fact that Rahman al-Islam, that the Jews are allowing that
Well, the government depends on the Muslims and the Arab.
right now the
I think
Right.
that because
That area is
the
control, I think,
we have a
everybody.
mitzvah
Huh?
of stuff.
The area controlled by Jordan.
no, they're talking to this guy. What's his name? Mohammed Mansour.
No, Abbas.
Mohammed. No, this guy in the Knesset. That's really running the government.
He wants now that the king of Jordan
Right.
to be, he's the only right to do anything in
In the Harabayis.
In that area.
Yeah.
Not in our hand.
Right.
Not Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
No.
The king of Jordan should control.
Control.
Yeah,
Son,
Harabayis.
who's this guy in the Knesset?
No, but I
Is he
mean,
Jewish?
according to Allah,
No, he's an Arab.
An Arab.
Now they
Yeah, they
have
have a party, Arab.
Yeah.
He lives in,
No,
he lives in
Chas
Israel.
v'shalom, wouldn't let me
Huh?
know.
He lives in
No,
Israel.
Knesset, you know.
He's in the Knesset, President Israel.
I mean,
That's
Yeah, and he's not staying another second.
I know, crazy how they, crazy how they
But
have
then, how
Arabs.
do you know that he's not staying there for
yeah,
an extra minute?
That's
It's crazy how they, if you think about it, crazy how they have Arabs in the Knesset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the prime minister. So. According to this,
Okay.
The bottom line is that the Israeli government today, Abi Aloche, shouldn't be allowing anybody there.
Sure.
By Harabais, right.
And what's it called? So that's it. We make a psak here that
Sure.
it's also the
Easy
next,
to
and we could do
do.
it like this. The next time they do something wrong to Eden, the Eden don't go in, but you don't go in either.
They're not allowed.
they will not do that.
No, but that's
They're
how to
afraid
make
from
it
them.
happen.
They're afraid from them. The Israelis afraid from the Arabs. Finish.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Because they're
What?
terrorists. They're not.
In my time, when I was in the army in the 70s,
Yeah.
I used to go to the Kollel. From the shuk, 2:00 in the morning, Arabs see me, run away.
Right.
I'm with a gun.
Right after the Six Day
They were
War,
afraid
were
from
afraid
us.
of us.
Now, Jews are afraid to go to the Kollel.
The other way around.
Much the opposite.
The other way around. Wow, terrible.
Okay, let's deal with the third question. If to put on film with a person that went through a couple of changes in his body. So in this week's Pasha, huh?
What kind of changes?
All kind of changes.
Oh, those kind of changes.
So the pasuk in this week's Pasha,
He looks like a girl.
Rabbi, you sing like Khrushchev or something.
the pasuk in this week's Pasha says that there are a list of mumim that if a kohen has that mum, he can't serve in the Beis Hamikdash. One of them is that if he went through certain bodily changes. So, what do you mean? What do you mean that that's not a mum? A woman can't serve in the Beis Hamikdash. A man could serve. The Torah is talking about men, and that these men have one of the following mumim, have one of the following blemishes that disqualify from working. If by having bodily changes, the person becomes a woman, the Torah wouldn't give it as a list in one of the mumin. It's a different thing. And it's a davar poshet. The Gemara says in many times when it talks lagabe mitzvahs, the Gemara has all over the Shas a discussion about a tumtum and a droigenis, which is a person which is a suffix if they're male or female, or that there is the opposite. So we see from the Gemara as a Dova Poshut that at the time of birth, it's determined if the person is male or female. The fact that that later on that he'll go through changes, that makes no difference. That makes no difference. So this person is a male, 100% male at the time of birth. He stays male for the rest of his life, and whatever changes he makes to his body makes no difference. He sits on the side of the mechitza that is for men, and definitely it's a mitzvah gedolah to put on tefillin with him. There's no question that you're allowed to put on tefillin. So now let's look at the interesting story in the Gemara. The Gemara says, "Ton Rabbanon, Ma'aseh be'echad shemeisa ishto, v'nicha ben linet, v'lo hoya lo schar minaka." His wife passed away, and he had a son, and he had no money to pay for a nurse. He didn't have any money to pay to buy a isomil for a bottle for his son.
Today there's no
V'nasaloi.
No gemach?
There's no gemach, I guess. V'nasaloi nes, v'niftach loi dadin kishnei dadi isha. That the upper part of his body became like a woman. V'heinik is benoi, and he was able to nourish his son.
That's a bigness.
Amr Reb Yosef, boy, kama godel odem zeh. Look how great this man is. Shanasa loy neis kazeh, that such a spectacular miracle happened for him. Amr le Abaye said, Adarab, kama gorua odem zeh. Look how terrible this person is. Shenishtana loy sidrei bereishis, that the Eibush to change sidrei bereishis. The Eibush could have sent him a check for $125, and he could buy 7 bottles of baby food, mix it with hot water, and he'd have a supply for 7-8 months until his kids can already eat and chew food. And the Eibush chose to do it in a different way. There's a gerua. Amr Yehuda Boydei Kamakoshim is an Eisha Shlodem. Shenishtana Lov Sidrei Bereishis. Amr Nachman Teda the Meserachash Nivsi. Below Yivri Mezayna, we see that the Eibush could have put just bread on the table, infamil on his table, isomil on the table, and the Eibush didn't do that. Okay, so the question is like this. The question is like this. It seems from the Gemara. So first, it just seems from the Gemara that just because his body changed like a woman, he didn't become a woman. He was a man. He was a man. And it's not if the pshat is that the Eibush should change, that a man became a woman became a man. So sure, it sounds like that he was still a man, and Lamai, his body changed to be like a woman. So there's an interesting shaila that everyone's asked. I mean, the Gemara says about Reb Chanina ben Doisa that his daughter was upset that they didn't have any oil in order to light Shabbos candles. So Reb Doisa said, "What do we have in the house?" She said, "All we have is vinegar." So Reb Chanina ben Doisa said, "Misha yomar le shemen v'yadlik, lo yomar lechemetz v'yadlik." That the same God that said that oil should burn will say the vinegar should burn, and that's what happened. She lit Shabbos candles with the vinegar. So they never asked this question: is the pshat that the vinegar turned into oil, or the vinegar was actually burning and it was actually vinegar?
The vinegar was burning would be more impressive.
If the vinegar is burning, it's more impressive. If the vinegar is burning, every minute is a nest. If the vinegar turned into oil, so then that one moment, it's a miracle. But after it's oil is oil. L'may nafkamina, the Rebbe said, the nafkamina is the Gemara says, Einen ma'aseh nitzim. You're not allowed to have a noah if something which is an absolute miracle.
But if you had
so, if after say the daughter of Chanina ben Doisa, if after Shabbos she needs a little matzah Shabbos, she needs a little candle to make food. If the vinegar actually turned into oil, okay, now it's oil. If vinegar is burning, it's a shaila.
For that job, it wouldn't do it for the next.
So I would say the same thing here. What's the pshat? Is the pshat that if they say that the man turned into a woman, now he's a woman? So what's if he wants to take a job on the side to nurse another baby, and he gets paid for that? So he's allowed to do it. But if you say that no, he didn't turn into a woman, he's a man, and it's every minute there's a crazy nest that he's a man and his body is producing kollel. Doesn't make sense. So then it would be also for him to hire himself out in order to nurse another baby.
Rabbi, how they compare Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa to this man that he changed? It's nothing to compare.
I'm not comparing. I'm just saying.
No, but why the Gemara gives this
I'm not.
much of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa?
No, it's not a comparison. I'm just saying that there's two ways that a miracle happens. Oil can turn in the vinegar can turn into oil, or the vinegar itself can burn. Same thing here. You could say that the man stays a man. Elamiah's body is producing cholov, which is like crazy. Or you'd say that he turned into a woman. Okay, once he turned into a woman, that's a pella. But once he's a woman, his body produces milk. That's a davar TV.
But here it
You
doesn't
could also say that he's a man. He's a man that Hashem gave him one time, like changing into the oil, into the other story, that he should be able to nurse, and now he could continue nursing
It
after.
seems like the question you're asking me is more of someone who's suffering from gender dysphoria as a mental illness. It's not like what he chose to how he chose to name his body is something else.
Okay,
It's a mental
so
illness.
conclusion is that definitely you can put on film that he's a man.
Oh, you can?
Yeah. Now,
By the way, why does everybody say it's guru? I don't understand that.
so why is it guru? So I want to finish off with this. There's two ways that the Eibishter does sometimes miracles. Sometimes the Eibishter makes spectacular miracles for us, and sometimes Chazal say, "Ein balanes makir benisei." We don't even realize what kind of unbelievable miracles are happening to us because we don't know what kind of dangers
We were
are
saved
lurking.
before it even happened.
Right, we were saved, and we didn't even know what we were saved from. So the question is, which is a bigger miracle? So the truth is that the Sefer Akedah says that there's two ways of knowing God. There's a way of knowing God through nature, through teva, and there's a way of knowing God through miracle. There's something special about a miracle because you see that there's a heavenly intervention, but there's also something special about seeing God in the fact that the world is running in a certain schedule, that Ani Hashem Lo Shanisi, that everything runs and everything ticks and everything runs like a clock, and there's no deviations. So that there's two ways of seeing Hashem. So that's the machloikis here in the Gemara. The machloikis in the Gemara. What is the better way? What's godel? What's greater? Is it greater to see Hashem through a miracle, or is it greater to see Hashem through teva? And Abaya said that even though it looks to you that seeing Hashem through a miracle is greater, Abaya says no, it's greater to see Hashem in simply seeing how this world is so spectacular, al pi teva, that nothing deviates. They have billions of details coming together. That's a beautiful way of seeing Hashem.
No, but he had
Unless Bederech Hateh would have been better. If you get the money.
I'm saying that Barry had a good point. He said Hashem could have given him money to get the food. So why didn't he? So what does that show?
How many eggs?
So think of the dog that doesn't work.
Abaya says better.
Think of
that
the
he
dog
the whole thing would have worked out in a natural
Same
way.
with the dog.
So point of
It looks like a
point
dog,
of
it looks
is
like a
saying
dog.
that you should just do it through
Doesn't
Teva.
work anymore.
And they should just do Teva. Because Teva is also nice, like you were saying, right?
Right.
Whereas Rabbi Yosef, he was
He's a
saying
man.
that it was an ace.
You could
It
still,
wasn't Teva.
you
It
could
was
still hold it
more than a Teva. It was an ace. Right? That's a little bit into That's right.
Shkoyach everyone that's joining us. Atzlocha, Emet Hashem. Tonight, 8:30. We're
Tonight they
really
told you going to be sushi. It's my birthday tonight.
What's going to be?
Sushi.
Oh wow! We're gonna have a little sushi tonight.